I want to talk about a time that you were extremely excited for something, and then it ended up being a giant disappointment.
100%, yeah.
Like the time we saw Dave Chappelle
Or the
and
time-
Childish Gambino.
Yeah, the time
live
we
at-
saw the Dave Chappelle for literally 10 seconds, not even, in Radio City Music Hall in New York City. Wow, what an experience that was. We had front row tickets. You had acquired front row tickets to see Dave Chappelle at Radio City Music Hall with musical guest Childish Gambino. And
Once in a lifetime show.
you came to me and you were like, because you knew that you could exploit a couple things, that I'm not tied down, I can pretty much do whatever I want, and it was also my birthday month, and you're like, he'll do whatever, you'll manipulate me into going.
And expendable income.
Yes. And because you told me a price for the tickets, and I was like, whoo, Daisy.
Do you not want to give out the price?
No. And
But it's front row to see a once in a lifetime show with Dave
True.
Chappelle, Childish Gambino.
true. Well, okay, you told
Radio
me.
City Music Hall.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You told me they were going to be like $800. And I was like, wow, man, can I have 24 hours to think about it? And you said, sure. And then I did some digging of my own. And I'm like, hey, if we just move, to row S, we can save ourselves, $600 or whatever. And you're like, no. And eventually I was just like, okay, yeah, I'll go. And you said, good, because I already bought the tickets and they're $1,200 a piece.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this SOB.
Yeah, I had already bought them like a week and a half before.
Yeah. And we went up there and we got all, what do they say? About,
Spiffed up.
yeah, well, that's the back. Now they're suited up. We got all suited and booted or whatever the hell they say.
I bought a brand new pair of Adidas
Yeah.
from the Adidas store in New York City.
We got in there and we gave them our tickets and they're like, ooh, big tickets. And I'm just like, yeah, hell yeah, big tickets.
We fueled up on drinks.
Yeah.
And-
Oh, yes, we did.
Our edibles were timed correctly.
Perfectly.
And we sit front row. We watch.
And we sit down and we're sitting next to someone who, to me, suspiciously looks like, oh gosh, what?
Quincy Jones.
Quincy Jones. Thank you. It could have been Quincy Jones. It probably wasn't Quincy Jones, but it may have been Quincy Jones. So we watched the set and we see
Mohammed Amr.
absolutely, yeah.
Mohammed Amr and Hannibal
So great.
Buress.
And Hannibal Buress came out unbeknownst to us, and I was like crying, laughing. I mean, walking across the stage like, hey, I can shake your hand if I tried.
Yeah.
And then the DJ starts getting everybody hype because Dave's coming out.
Yeah.
And he's like, I want everybody to stand up. We're not friends tonight. We're all family tonight. Say hello to your friends to your left and your right and behind you, yada, yada. So we're saying hello, hello, hello.
He shook hands with Quincy Jones.
Quincy Jones shook Quincy Jones's hand. And all of a sudden, this, young, beautiful woman comes over. And Quincy turns to me and he says, I think you're sitting in one of our seats. And I was like, what'd you say? Motherfucker. No.
Right.
I was like, what? Well, like, now is the time to bring this up? And he's like, yeah, I think you're in one of our seats. And I turned to you and I was like, Dave, is there an empty seat next to you? And you're like, these are our seats. We're not leaving. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what is happening right now? And he's like, I think you're in one of our seats. And all of a sudden, like, they call over the usher, and the usher, he's like, let me see your tickets. Let me see your tickets. And he's like, looks at theirs and he looks at ours. And he looks at theirs and he looks at ours. And the DJ's like, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Dave Chappelle. And the curtain starts going up and you see that giant Chappelle C.
Yep.
And there's just smoke machine smoke coming off the stage. And the usher looks at us. He goes, you two, come with me. And we're like, what? And he leads us up out of, and like, I'm turning and I'm like, here comes Dave onto the stage. And we're being led out of the establishment.
Radio City Music Hall.
Yeah. To the point where we get outside and then we're complaining to the head usher. And she's like, well, there's nothing we can do.
Yeah, your tickets are fake. You bought
Yeah.
them from StubHub.
You need to call StubHub. So then we had to go get our phones because they were locked up
bags, yep.
in the bags because you can't have them when you're during the show. And then once we got our phones and we take our phones out, you tried calling them and I got on text message with them. And another usher comes up to us and is like, you can't use your phones here.
Yeah,
you need to
in
go
the
over
venue,
there.
you
And I'm like,
gotta
where
go
am I
out on
supposed
the
to go?
street.
Yeah. He goes, you need to go out here. So effectively, In about 90 seconds, we went from sitting front row at Radio City Music Hall for Dave Chappelle and Childish Gambino to standing on the sidewalk outside.
With the scalpers trying to sell us fucking tickets to get back in.
Yeah.
And here's the problem. I would have turned into a full-blown mega Karen. Like, I would have raged so hard, like Super Saiyan Karen. But I ate about 35 milligrams more of edibles than I normally do because I wanted to be lit.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like a docile lion that just took a trank dart to the ass. I'm just like, oh, we got to go outside. Okay, well, fuck it. That's what we got to do.
And then one of the scalpers wanted to buy our tickets fully knowing that they were fake.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm not letting you do that
And
to
then
somebody.
he tried to sell us tickets to get back in.
Right.
It's like, well,
Right.
fool me once.
And then we're walking away, and I said, you were disappointed, as you should well have been.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, Dave, look on the bright side. How many people get to say they sat in the front row of Radio City Music Hall and saw Hannibal Buress perform stand-up comedy for free?
For free. Yeah. StubHub refunded our tickets. Fuck StubHub. They
Yeah,
can eat
I've not
hot
used
dick.
them ever since then.
Yeah, never, ever again. We should have just tried to buy some tickets and get back in, but instead we walked through New York City back to Hell's Kitchen. Before we got back to our hotel, we stopped in a little plaza. There was like some benches.
Yeah.
And we just sat there and thought about how bad it sucked that Childish Gambino was out there killing it. Dave fucking murdered the show. And we
I
were
was-
just sitting on a bench looking at the fucking sky.
I was counting $1,200 back in my bank account.
You were happy about that.
I wasn't happy about it, but it was the bright side.
Yeah, that was one of the most disappointing things. And
And on top of that, is that where you're going?
no, go ahead.
We get
In
back
case
to
it's
the
not where I'm going.
we go back to the hotel room, and all Dave wants is a calzone.
Yeah.
He's like, this. What's gonna make Dave feel better tonight?
Stress eating much?
A calzone. So he calls the pizza place, and they're like, we're not doing calzone just right now. And he's like, what? He's like, are you doing pizzas? And they're like, yeah. And he's like, making me a calzone, and they wouldn't do it, and it was like the end of your world.
Yeah, dude. I mean, you can't see Dave Chappelle. You can't see Childish Gambino. They can't fold a fucking pizza in half and make me a calzone.
Right.
Like, what are you guys doing? I thought this was New York.
Yeah. What do you mean you don't have calzones?
Where I was going with it is, had we went the full Karen route and like contacted the news and shit like that
Yeah.
couple in South Carolina a couple of years ago, they got sold fake tickets to see Dave, and then they complained to the news about it, and then he shows up at their dinner and gifts them tickets and shit. We're like, damn.
I really would have wished that he would have seen us getting tossed out and made a thing about it right then and there.
Yeah, no.
And then we could have explained, and he would have been like, why don't you come sit up here on the stage with me? And I'd be like, okay, Dave.
Yeah, as
I
a
will.
comedian, that is definitely not. As you come out, you're not paying attention to
Anybody,
in that,
yeah.
especially in that front row. We just saw Tom Segura front row at Playhouse Square.
Yeah.
And, he maybe looked down 2 times the entire show. Most of the time he's got, tunnel vision out in the
Right.
crowd. But yeah, that fucked me up for a minute. I didn't do comedy for a couple weeks. And then I said, I'm not going back to New York City until they fucking pay me. No leisure in New York. I'm only going if it's work.
Right.
So.